for me, the purpose of the content has always been to sell. Like, of course, it is to bring users and to increase the awareness, but ultimately my KPIs, the KPIs of my team are connected to the revenue, right? So we need to really think, okay, what do people actually want to read about that will make them buy?
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, Kas Szatylowicz, and today I'm very happy and excited to be joined by Kas Szatylowicz. Kas is the head of organic growth at V7 and has attended Reforge. She's currently focused on growing V7's traffic, leads, users, and team members. We are connected for a while on LinkedIn, and I'm very excited to, finally get to talk to you. Welcome, Kas.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite.
So let's get started with the question I always, ask anyone who joins the podcast. Could you please share a few things about your background?
Sure. So I started in SEO in content a couple of years ago when I joined a company called Nightwatch. It was an SEO tool. I was mostly responsible for the blog, for link building, for social media as well, because back in the time, the startup life where you kind of wear a lot of the hats. Then I moved on to Tidio, where I was an outreach lead. So I was mostly responsible for link building and also a little bit involved in content marketing. And then right now I am head of organic growth, as you mentioned, at V7, which is a computer vision platform.
For people who haven't heard of V7, could you please share a couple of things about the company and its products?
Sure, I'm probably the biggest ambassador of the company. V7 is a training data platform, and essentially we help machine learning teams, the AI first companies, build their computer vision products. So we work with companies in all industries spanning, healthcare, manufacturing, agriculture, literally any kind of industry, insurance. And do you want me to explain how V7 works for people that might not be familiar?
Sure.
So I always give it, there's an example that I made when I was describing and trying to explain V7 to my parents. So essentially we have a platform, and imagine that you're Elon Musk and you have your Tesla, right? And you want your Tesla to be a self-driving car. And for that to happen, your Tesla needs to learn to recognize things in the street. So it needs to learn to recognize pedestrians, it needs to learn to recognize traffic signs and traffic lights. So in order to do that, you need to upload loads of data, like thousands and thousands of images and videos that you can upload to V7, annotate this data, and then train your computer vision model to be able to recognize those things, put it back to your Tesla, and there you go, you have your self-driving car. Of course, this is a oversimplification, and we actually don't work, ironically, that much with autonomous driving, but this is one of the best ways to probably explain it.
Okay. You were previously at Tidio, and I know that you did a great job there when it comes to outreach and organic growth in general. Could you please share some learnings that you have taken from your work and time at Tidio and applied to V7?
Sure. Yeah, Tidio, amazing company, first of all, really great people. We had an awesome content team. And I think the thing that Tidio did really well was really setting up the systems for the content. So they had a very scientific approach to creating content. And that goes, from doing the keyword research that not only is a regular keyword research, but actually when you come up with topics, it had literally a dollar value assigned to them. So we were able to more or less forecast, how many leads, how much money we'll be able to make based on the keywords or the given topics that we're thinking about. So Tidio was very good with setting up systems. They set up really great systems for building what we called content map. They set up really good systems for outreach. I was part of setting up those systems for outreach. One of the very interesting things that I learned, because I was leading outreach there for a while, was how to work with something that we called digital PR content. So essentially creating link-worthy pieces of content, and whether that would be reports or that would be some sort of statistics that, first of all, you would share with relevant blogs, with relevant people that would link to this piece of content in their blog post, and it would also collect links passively, just because if just an example, for instance, of an article called Chatbot Statistics that was just passively collecting links, because everyone writing about chatbots, to make their articles more credible, they wanted to mention some sort of statistics. And because our article was chatbot statistics, where we ran a study and we actually had numbers and it was like sort of a case study, it was ranking very high in Google. Everyone writing any other article related to chatbots was using our stats to make their articles more credible. What that means to us, of course, is a lot of the links, then this links just that we could pass from the chatbot statistic article to other articles that were relevant to us. So a lot of learning there, about systems and about digital PR for sure.
How would that apply, especially the digital PR part, to V7? I mean, how do you how did you integrate that into your strategy?
Yeah, so the digital PR part is a little bit harder at V7. And so maybe I'll mention one more thing that I learned at Tidio that I actually brought to V7. So one other thing that I learned, and I don't think that's very common, so I think I might be revealing a bit of a secret, is something that we call the edu outreach. So trying to reach out, and also the gov outreach. So essentially what it means is that we are trying to reach out to universities, and we're trying to get those links from university websites and also the gov websites, but I'm going to focus on universities here. And the way we do that right now at V7, for instance, and I'm revealing a big secret here, is that we've built a linkable asset, and this asset is our repository of data sets. So we have something called open data sets. And because we know, and because we have an educational plan, so we know that there's a lot of interest in our tool from people currently studying machine learning, currently studying, any subjects related to computers, to artificial intelligence. So we are able to reach out to universities that have those programs related to computer vision, for instance, to machine learning. And we tell them, hey, we have this really cool asset. It's a repository of data sets, and your students are really interested in our tool. And everyone who wants to do something related to computer vision needs data sets. Would you want to link in your resource page on your university website to this page, So this brought us a lot of the links, and because those links are very valuable because they're coming from very credible websites, it really helped us grow our DR, almost doing no other link building at all. So yeah, that's one example of that.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I haven't, as far as I can remember, I haven't heard anything similar in the past. One thing I was, thinking as I was preparing for this interview was the fact that, at least as I perceive it, V7 operates in a relatively new space. Okay, I don't want to call it category. Let's say relatively new space. Okay, so my question is, how do you approach organic growth, considering that, for example, the way people search may not have been developed yet? I would like to hear your approach.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a real journey, because when I was joining, it was hard because we didn't have many competitors that were doing SEO well. So for me, it was really the matter of trying to figure things out on my own. Like I couldn't just check, at Tidio, for instance, I could check, hey, what is Drift doing? Hey, what is like Georgia's doing? All those other live chat companies that already were there doing stuff. I could just, sort of copy their strategies. At V7, it was a little bit more difficult. And as you say, it was a new space. It was really hard to find writers. I had to actually go to Medium to find writers and to find people that were either machine learning engineers or students that could, help me write this content. Our strategy to start with, something that I was really focused on, was the volume. I was like, I am not sure yet what people are really looking for when it comes to our tool, because the space was not very well defined. So I just focused on keywords that had the highest search volume. I was checking some blogs, like personal blogs more than competitors' blogs related to machine learning. And we just developed, a bunch of articles, more of the educational content, thinking that, hey, if we bring those people for those keywords that have very large search volume, to educational content. So we are writing, about object detection or semantic segmentation, all those like phrases that are connected to the tool, but it's just still more educational. But I knew that once I build this traction and people realize, okay, V7, semantic segmentation, computer vision, like sort of something connects, we'll be able to, convert them from those pages going forward. So focus on the educational content. When I was joining, we had 3,500 people coming. There was no blog on V7. They just had landing pages. They were not optimized at all. We started the blog in the first week, and within 11 months, thanks to the hard work of our writers, of our freelance writers, I think there were like 6 or 7 of them at some point, we managed to scale it to more than 80,000 organic visitors. Right now, we have over 150,000 visitors, so less than 2 years after I started.
That's impressive. Really well done. Can I ask though, I mean, in the beginning, when you joined almost 2 years ago, I assume that you had little to no idea, let's say, when it comes to computer vision and all these things that V7 does. My question is, how did the content creation process work? I mean, did you prepare the brief, then the writer whom you like found on Medium, for example, and that this person knows their stuff, wrote the content, and then my question is, who kind of edited this piece of content and like kind of could put the final signature and say, this is ready, we can publish it on our website?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky in a way that the V7 team, when I was joining, was very small. So I was joining as a 9th person, and everyone was extremely nice and everyone was extremely smart. So I was like, okay, I'll be fine. So the way it works for the first 6 months was that I was, first of all, finding writers, sending those the pieces of that those writers produced to our deep learning engineer and our CEO, who are basically like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy doesn't really know what he's talking about. Whereas sometimes getting on the call just to understand whether the person that I found is actually capable of writing about those topics. Then I was preparing the briefs. So I was preparing all the outlines. I was using Surfer SEO for it. And I was actually, of course, researching the content that was already there. There was not much. There was really not much. And trying to basically make our pieces more comprehensive. I think that's a standard practice, basically. See what's out there and make your content better, like include everything that's already out there and then add, a twist to this or add some additional information to make it better. I was sending the outline to the writers. They were writing it. They were sending it back. I was the person actually editing all of that and putting it to Webflow, but I was also sharing that with our deep learning engineers. I was sharing that with our CEO. And they were, kind of doing this sense check whether the person that wrote the article wrote it correctly. It took 6 months. Within 6 months, and I didn't believe them when they told me at first, I started to understand things more. Of course, there are still a bunch of technical stuff that I really don't understand, but I think it's been a really nice journey because I learned so much just about this world, about this space, just through editing those articles. Like at first you don't know what are autoencoders. After 6 months or after 3 articles where you read about autoencoders, you're like, okay, I can have a conversation at the machine learning conference about autoencoders, and I'm not going to sound completely stupid. So that's how it went.
So it seems to me that it sounds like the whole company was invested in that effort, right?
Totally. Everyone was on board. I'm very grateful for that. They were very, very helpful and very kind and very patient with me on that.
Can I ask you, like you mentioned that when you started, there was like little to no kind of content, or let's say good content that's created for a search audience, and at the same time, it's scientifically, let's say, approved and reviewed and so on. What has changed now, 2 years in? Do you
Yeah.
see, like search engine results pages more saturated, competition kind of through the path that you have managed to lead, and so they are like, okay, these guys are doing it like that, maybe we should start doing something similar. What are the changes that you notice?
Absolutely. I'll tell you two things. So first of all, there's definitely more content. I think our competitors, when I was starting, they were completely not doing SEO. Like when I was checking Ahrefs, it took us maybe, 6 months to overtake every single one of them with a much smaller team, much smaller budget, just because I think they didn't invest in SEO. Right now, I can see that they invest more and more in this sort of educational content as well. They optimize their things because we are monitoring everything. It got so far as to the point where they actually copying some of our things, like our competitor pages, which was, a discovery we made a few weeks ago, which was kind of funny. However, the thing about this space is also that literally every single year, sometimes even every half a year, you actually have new topics to write about that you wouldn't know existed 6 months ago. And that's because, people keep developing new algorithms, like we had DALL-E, we had Midjourney, for instance, about AI generated art. So there are more ideas coming literally every single conference. However, I think right now we are at the point where we are attracting more than 150,000 organic users. I think it's 180K overall users every month to the page. And we are running out of topics. This never happened to me in any other company. And this makes me also realize that we need to sort of evolve a little bit more towards thought leadership content and not so much, continuing with this educational content, because we are sort of moving further and further away from the core value that the tool provides. And it's very hard to connect those educational articles anymore with what V7 does. And for me, the purpose of the content has always been to sell. Like, of course, it is to bring users and to increase the awareness. But ultimately, my KPIs, the KPIs of my team are connected to the revenue, right? So we need to really think, okay, what do people actually want to read about that will make them buy? So yeah, I think the whole space will be moving and has already been in this like more thought leadership content.
Speaking of ROI, can I ask you, of course, whatever you feel comfortable and can share, but obviously these results are impressive, from 3,500 to more than 100, like 50,000 visits per month. It's impressive by its own. But my question is, do you see a correlation between, or you may tell me that no, it's revenue directly attributed to our efforts, but is there a correlation between what you do and this organic growth with revenue growth, like actual business outcomes?
Of course. So organic is currently the channel that brings us the most leads, the most like sales qualified leads. However, there is a difference between the way it works, for instance, with SaaS companies like Tidio and the SaaS companies like V7. And that purely comes from the fact that the cycle of buying things, the life cycle, is much longer at V7 than it is at Tidio, Tidio that had, a free product where you can literally click a button inside the article, create your own account, get your live chat, get your chatbot set up, within 15 minutes, that's it, And there we really focused on getting content. As I mentioned, there was a dollar value literally attached to every single piece of content, because it was very immediate. Like we knew that, okay, if we write the right thing, we know that people should click. If we don't write the right thing, people won't click, right? And it was very simple. Like, do they click? Do they not click? At V7, it's a little bit different, and we prefer to think about this, the revenue and the leads that are coming in, that it's way more multi-touch rather than first touch or the last touch model attribution, and it's more like organic assisted revenue, organic assisted leads, or like marketing assisted leads, right? Because because of the prices of our software, it's very hard to expect people to like, read one article and be like, hey, I want this platform that's, costs more than $5,000 or whatever. It's just not working this way. But yeah, absolutely. It's bringing us a lot of the leads. It's, increasing the awareness. And as we say, it's sort of like marketing assisted revenue.
Do you see any other differences between the audiences? I mean, I don't know if I got this right by, doing the research for this episode, but is one of the audiences you're targeting ML scientists or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a very smart audience, a lot of people with PhDs. We target machine learning engineers, we target data scientists, but also we right now with this thought leadership content and more product content, we're going towards like CTOs, head of product. So not just people in the machine learning world, we're going a little bit broader. But with the content that we wrote on the blog and content that we wrote up until this point, it was mainly machine learning engineers and data scientists.
But do you see any differences between this audience now and, for example, Tidio's audience? That, for example, now we need to be more like low context and be very specific with the things that we say. And even in sales calls, we have to explain everything because these people dig deep and so on and so forth, as opposed to Tidio, where we had to kind of sell the dream that like this will work on your website and it will make you money as you sleep and so on and so forth. Any differences that you can share?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, massive differences. Like the audience that we are targeting now, super smart. They want to be very technical. I am very mindful of the things that we put on our blog because I know this will be called out. Like I just know that if something is, let's say, technically incorrect, like that would be called out, and rightly so, right? Like we need to make sure that the content that we produce is right. Yeah, it's a little bit different. For instance, I can't do programmatic SEO for V7. I know it's working wonderfully for a lot of the companies. For instance, I don't know if you spoke previously or of Emilia Korczynska, who is the head of marketing at UserPilot. I know that she's doing a lot of the programmatic SEO. I know programmatic SEO has been, a thing for the last few years. I can't do this. Like it just will not work with this sort of the audience because our pieces need to be very, very refined. And we really cannot write things just for search engines. Like, we can optimize the things that we write, but it's always written, with this very scientific approach and a lot of technical details. And as you mentioned, like with calls, it's exactly the same. I do case study calls as well. And I had to really learn a lot about the product. I always have to learn a lot about the use case to understand, because the people I'm talking to is no longer, Kelly from Ohio selling shoes who needs a live chat, and she needs it today. And like, she just needs to, understand how to install it. I'm talking to, doctors, I'm talking to radiologists, I'm talking to digital pathologists, I'm talking to like, machine learning engineers. So people that really, really smart people.
Okay, I got it.
Not to say that Kelly, from Ohio is not smart, but
yeah,
it's a different level of conversation.
Of course, it's a different case. I mean, it's a different audience. Yeah, of course. But going back to that, I would like to ask. I guess that with most, or let's say not most, many SaaS companies, like the use cases are very easy to explain, and from a search standpoint, it's easy to say, for example, I want a live chat tool or software for my website or whatever. Okay. Is that the case with V7? And are there like opportunities for feature pages, use case pages, you can call them however you like, or do you approach it completely different? It's purely through content, and then, we kind of develop a relationship with our audience and so on.
The software is one, right? Like you can do more things with the software than just like having a live chat, and that's sort of your product. And for instance, the way we see it right now is that on V7, you can label your data and you can train your models, right? And then you can improve your models. So these are sort of like the three, value props that we have, or the things that you can do on the platform in a very like simplified version of it. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but yeah, we do have feature pages and we do have, industry pages. So we have, I think right now, 13 industry pages. And as I mentioned, it's, goes from healthcare through manufacturing, agriculture, because we also know that, when I'm doing paid ads, for instance, and I got a target accounts list from our sales team, me sending them to just a generic page, if I know that these companies are, specifically in the agriculture space or they're specifically in the healthcare space, like it's just a good practice to, naturally send them to like a healthcare industry page, because we have different features. Of course, there's, different features for different use cases. For instance, we're developing right now our medical features, and that's something that should be obviously highlighted on the industry page, and that's where I'm going to send people in the healthcare industry to. When it comes to actual feature pages, we just, unified it. We have just the feature pages on the website, and then industry pages, and then use case pages that we also use for the events. Whenever we go to like a specific event, like a healthcare conference, healthcare technology conference, we just create a separate page where we send people to, where we put ads on, and then it's like super personalized to the specific audience.
Yeah, that's kind of what I asked. I mean, and I think that you answered that. I'm assuming that there are people who are actually searching for things like healthcare computer vision software or
Exactly.
healthcare segmentation software or anything in that in that space. You talked a bit earlier about what you can and you can't do, and I would like to ask: is generative content or AI content, let's say, something that you do, or like we can't touch that? And a follow-up to that would be your thoughts in general when it comes to generative AI and all this craziness around chat GPT.
Sure. So actually, when you and I were scheduling this conversation, that was before ChatGPT was launched. And I was thinking that one of the things that I can share that I thought would be a novelty back then would be the fact that we were, even before ChatGPT, using the OpenAI, we're using the DaVinci model to help us create content, right? So we are sort of doing that before it was cool. Of course, there are also tools like, Surfer SEO that helps you, for instance, write briefs, and they are AI powered and so on. And to give you a short answer, yes, we do use AI generated content. It's not fully AI generated. I use it more. I think about it more as an AI assistant more than, something that I just produce, and like, I can't write articles basically with ChatGPT, but I can, help myself with writing case studies. I can help myself with landing pages copy. So we do use it on a daily basis. And I think it's great. As I say, like, I think it's a huge help for marketers. I don't think it's something that will replace marketers, but I do think that's something that will really help them in their job. I'm the best example. I used to love writing. I feel like I got burnt out after maybe 3 years of, working in content. And for the last 3 years, like I really don't like writing content anymore. It's a struggle, it's a struggle to sit down and write content. So for me, it's a blessing, that we have those tools and that I can just put my ideas there, edit it a little bit, and then it's just going to, produce a perfect version of a copy for the landing page.
But it has to be fact checked and like for accuracy, and if everything is as it should be.
Sure. So we don't use that for technical content. I wouldn't use it at all for writing about research papers or writing about some computer vision concept. We do use it more for the copy for the landing pages, so something that's a little bit more generic, like, hey, how can we make this copy more converting? How can we make it sound a little bit more natural? And of course, we give it examples. We use it for ads as well. I think this is a really good example of how you can use it, like ads, because it's simple piece of content. You need a couple of versions of the same ad. How would AI write it differently so that you can have, different copies and write ads in 20 minutes and not 2 hours.
Yeah. And also with ads, it's like, what, this ad doesn't work. Let's just shut it down. Like isn't worth it. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Yeah. There are definitely use cases, and I see the use cases there. One thing I liked in your blog post is the CTA with a GIF that shows how your product works. My question is, do you map this CTA to specific pages based on the intent, or is it something you can, just add to every post regardless of the intent?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of background to it, because this is actually the practice that I also learned at Tidio, and they learned it from another company that was a resume company called Zeti. And this is just a very good practice that I think any sort of, person in content marketing should learn, especially people responsible for the blogs, where you essentially try to convert people almost right away in the intro, right? So the way Zeti did it, so this resume company, was that they had literally the bad resume on the left side and the great resume on the right side, right? And they were just giving this comparison, and then they had this button, like, hey, if you want to have this resume on the right side, click here. We did the same thing at Tidio, and then I brought it here to V7. We try to personalize them. We're actually right now in the process of trying to personalize them for every piece of content. It's probably, not going to be every single piece of content, because we have like 90 articles, but it's going to be more relevant to the piece of content that are there. It's just sort of copy paste in Webflow with a bit of code that we can implement.
Okay, that makes sense. And we will make sure to drop a link, let's say, to one of these blog posts in the show notes, so that people can actually see how that looks like. So as we will start wrapping things up, Kas, I have one last question for you. Do you have any favorite examples of SaaS companies that get content marketing and SEO right, or does something innovative, something that we don't see very often?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's been mentioned already. There was a really great Twitter thread that was going viral maybe a year ago or something. I still didn't get to do the things that they've done, but it was about Zapier, and it was about their content and SEO strategy. And essentially, in a nutshell, what they've done is that they sort of outsourced the effort of creating content to their partners, right? Because Zapier is, the thing that a lot of the integrations are are made with Zapier. And essentially what they did, and I think this is maybe goes under the category of the programmatic SEO, but they essentially started creating those pages with integrations, and obviously it uses the brand name of those other integrations, right? So they just build themselves, a great strategy for trying to rank not only for their brand keyword, but for the brand keyword of every other integration they have, be it HubSpot, ClickUp, whatever else they have, integrations with. And I thought this was just great, because all they did was, from what I understand, it was prepare those guidelines and sort of prepare those templates for the partners and be like, hey guys, if you want to be, partners to Zapier, you need to write an article about, how this all integrates. And I thought this was just great. And I'm really hoping to do something similar for V7 with, whenever we're going to start integrating with other partners.
Okay, when you do, I would like to have a follow-up discussion with you to chat about it.
I'll send you the Twitter thread as well, because I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it would be nice to add this in the show notes as well. So that was all very insightful. Thank you very much, Kas. Always always great to chat with you and learn how you do things. Last question I have for you: where can people find out more and get in touch?
Sure. So I'm most active on LinkedIn. And by the way, we are hiring. I'm hiring another content manager. So I'm just going to plug in, shameless plug of a bit of a, career opportunity promotion. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm most active there, or just send me an email.
Okay, that's great. We will put all these links in the show notes. Kas, thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invite, George.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part: you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.